Yeah, just whatever. Yeah. Yeah, no, they don't need to see my room. It's fine. We're live now? Cool. Oh, huh. I don't know if I have California relatives. I don't know if their last names are not Gilman though. Interesting. Hmm. Yeah, fun fact, I'm wearing a sun shirt in that scene. Which movie? Wait, which movie? Oh, oh wait, is something happening? Okay. Hey, sorry, your like voice is like breaking up a little bit. Uh, but hey guys, yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, for as you were like introing me, you were like you were cutting in and out. But no, now we're good. Now we're good. Someone, I Okay, I have the page open now, so I can see like the comments and stuff. Your image is frozen. So I don't know if you can see that. Or like the Oh wait, hold on, wait. I'm like I went back. Okay. This is weird. I'm like watching my own live, or like I'm watching a live stream when I'm in. It's kind of weird. Uh, yeah, I can like I've heard. Yeah, you haven't been cutting out at all. So I mean, I guess so. Then can they hear me, or is it just the stream audio is just not working? I'm gonna pose this question on the in the chat.
Okay. I okay. So it's coming through. It's coming through for me that like my audio is going into audio is of
Yeah,
sync. Can people hear me? Okay. So audio is of sync. Is out of sync.
is out of
That might be
sync.
because of
Okay, I
just
think probably.
that's
I
probably lag.
imagine it's what.
That's probably lag. All right, guys. Okay, it's nice
Okay,
now.
it's there
It's
now.
there.
Okay,
All right,
cool.
guys. Let's start this off for real. Okay, so I'm
All right.
joined. I'm joined tonight by Jared Gilman. You might know him from Moonrise Kingdom or Paterson. He's an actor and he's currently a student at NYU. And Jared, you want to say hi?
Hi. Took forever to say hi, but hello.
So, anyways, so we've been talking about doing a stream ever since he helped me out on the Moonrise Kingdom video, and I thought, I was thinking like, man, doing a Wes Anderson video would be so just, I don't know, it'd be cheesy or whatever. It'd be kind of stupid, and like, but so we decided on the 400 blows, and you hadn't seen it before, right?
No, it was my first time watching it. I'd seen so. I mean, I'd watched a couple like clips for classes and stuff. I'd seen like the bit when he died, he was like spinning around, and then I think I'd watched a scene of with him and the dad, and then I had seen like the very end. So like I knew like the famous like freeze frame final shot. Uh,
Yeah, the freeze frame final shot that sort of like created the French New Wave. There's a few freeze frames in the film too. I guess maybe we can start talking about. Have you seen any other Truffaut movies?
I have not.
Oh, okay.
I need to. In general, I'll be honest. I am very behind with like French New Wave movies. I've seen, which I know may sound I don't know shocking or something. I'm not sure, I've seen like I've seen like a few, but like there are a lot I still have not gotten to.
Yeah.
So I will, I
Well,
guess, make that sort of uh uh warning or
yeah.
whatever.
So Truffaut is probably my favorite of the French New Wave directors, and he was obviously he was kind of at the head of it with Godard, and the 400 Blows is very reminiscent of Truffaut's own childhood. He was a delinquent as a child, and he ended up being taken in by
Mhm.
Andre Bazin, the film critic who did a lot of writing on Italian neorealism. He has a good book on it, and it was really through Bazin and through the cinema clubs and stuff that they started Cahiers du Cinema, which R.I.P. Uh,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah. So may
That's a shame.
so this stream is pouring one out for Cahiers du Cinema. uh, yeah. But
But
so
see, yeah, this was like his first movie, right?
yeah, this is his first movie, and it's an amazing first film. And it's another first, actually. I looked this up today. It was the first French film to be shot in the 235 by 1 aspect ratio.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy
Huh.
because in America, in American cinema, the 235 by 1 aspect ratio was reserved for like epics and, like big
Yeah, and
movies.
this is like it's like a low key movie about a kid getting in some trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see where it's like independent filmmakers in the later in America, especially in the 80s and 90s, it took a lot of inspiration from the French New Wave, took that sort of
Hmm.
widescreen aesthetic and applied it to smaller stories. I mean,
Hmm.
Wes Anderson being a prime example.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And yeah, so it's a very interesting first movie, and I absolutely love it. And I think most people that watch it end up falling in love with it or aspects of it. Uh,
Yeah, I
it's
mean, I think there's. I mean, I think it's a hard movie to not
oh, you're kind of cutting out.
find like. Oh, sorry. Am I?
Yeah,
Right now.
yeah, you're good
Uh,
now.
uh, okay. Uh, I guess my point just being that it's like a. I can see why lots of people like
You cut out again.
they
You
related and again.
yeah, your internet's like
Uh,
really bad.
Shit. Uh, like on a scale of like 1 to 10, how bad? Out of curiosity.
It's probably like a 3 because we can hear some stuff and then you cut out for a little bit. So do you want to like you want to like stop the call and then call back in? I'll pick you up. I'll pick you up. I'll still talk.
I
Just
shouldn't have done that. Uh,
just call him with
Wait.
audio.
Okay. How about now?
Just call him with audio because we can't
Wait.
even see you
Can
anymore.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Wait. Uh, like turn off the video.
Yeah,
Uh,
just turn off the video and it should be a lot better, a lot smoother.
all right. Okay.
Yeah,
How's it now?
yeah, it's a lot better.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Uh.
Yeah, so
So
basically
yeah. No.
talking about yeah.
I was making a pretty basic, just like, yeah, I can definitely understand how people like related to the movie when they see it, because even though it came out like, even though it's like 50 years old, it's like, yeah, there's still a lot about it that rings true, or that the idea that like kids are held to this standard that adults are not, I think is still true, or is
Yeah.
still like resonant.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I agree. And you know it's kind of funny because I was looking at it through the lens of like Truffaut at the time and Godard at the time and all those guys um, in the late 50s. And I was thinking how much it really fits in with the French New Wave and how great a film it is to sort of kick off the Nouvelle Vague, in the sense that it is a film about like this a totalitarian regime, but it's not a totalitarian regime like in some like dystopian sci-fi film. It's a totalitarian regime of the school teacher and the parents,
Hmm.
and it's about a kid who's very like liberated within himself, and he's creative and he wants to explore all
Yeah.
these different things, but he's constantly being unjustly punished
Hmm.
for things he's doing. And
Yeah.
it all starts off in the beginning. This whole like theme starts off in the beginning with this great opening shot showing like the pinup girl that's kind of being passed around throughout, and every student passes around this pinup girl, and then it lands on
Hmm.
Antoine.
And then it lands on him, and then he
Yeah,
gets in trouble.
yeah, he gets in
Yeah.
trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like the original sin, because it's like that starts off everything in the film. It's
Hmm.
this unjust punishment. So then he retaliates, and it just kind of, the whole film was like this cascade effect
Yeah.
to the
And then
final.
it's like meanwhile, it's like, he catches like his mom cheating on his dad,
Yeah,
and it's like, and it's like, what can he? And yeah, he's still getting himself in trouble. It's like he's still,
yeah,
it's like very much the world is very much against him, and the way that the way that it was portrayed, where he, where it's like the level of, I guess, crimes that he's doing versus like the punishment
yeah,
seems very uh biased toward the adults.
yeah.
And
And
you're gonna say?
what's funny, I was gonna just sort of talk about this sort of the crimes, within the film, is I noticed it was, he later falls. I know I'm kind of skipping ahead in the movie right now, but there is like this element of crime in the film. Although I kind of read the film as like a drama with actually quite a bit of comedy in it.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's like, it's not, it's like I would call it like a light movie, even though it's not like a light movie, but it's for the most part, it's you
yeah, exactly. No, I know what you're saying.
you know what I'm trying to get
Yeah,
at. I mean,
yeah.
because I just watched it, so I'm not really finding the words just yet, but like uh, uh it had sort of, it was at least for the first part, for sure, like
Yeah, no, I know what
it's
what you're getting at is there's a levity
you
to
feel
it.
like you're
Yeah.
watching it through his eyes. Like you feel like you're with the kid. It's very, you feel very much, because the camera is usually like pretty eye level with him, or
See,
if not, it's like looking really high,
yeah,
from a really high angle. But
referencing back to the the things I was talking about in Moonrise Kingdom, because it's definitely something that Truffaut did in his movies, is keep on eye level with his characters,
oh
even
yeah,
with his children actors. Um,
hmm
yeah, and you
and then so
definitely,
I also, I mean, like, I obviously, after I watched it, I like skimmed the IMDb trivia. So I mean, take anything I say with a huge grain of salt, I guess. But like, apparently, like the kids in the classroom had like auditioned for that part
yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
they had, yeah, and they didn't get
Uh,
it.
that which you know sounded familiar. Uh,
Yeah, because
uh,
that was how Moonrise Kingdom operated. Is that
Kinda, yeah.
yeah,
The scouts. Yeah. Um, what else? I mean, I guess I'll let you guide the conversation, since you're the expert here.
yeah. So what I was just gonna say is, it's definitely a light. Like I want to say that it is a movie about a kid sort of turning to crime, but the crime is never intense. It's not. It's always
No,
very low.
steals a typewriter.
Yeah, exactly. It's very low. It's very low stakes. The only time that the police get involved is because his parents just want him taken away. It's not
Hmm.
good. It's not because he's going to commit this crime that's going to haunt him for the rest of his life. And what's funny about the stealing the typewriter is that he doesn't actually get in trouble for stealing the typewriter. He gets in trouble for bringing it back,
Hmm.
which is ironic. And and Truffaut's sort of, I think the reason why all this sort of bad family life and just kind of constant like these sort of constant injustices, they don't feel overbearing in the film, because Truffaut really loves this character of Antoine Doinel, and he has this very affectionate eye for him, and Doinel is he's a very optimistic figure, and and he's this kind of
Hmm.
creative character and everything like that, and you never really feel like that much is at stake, so he can get in trouble or do these things, and it's not really like nothing is really the end of the world, and I like characters like that. And I want to point out something with the element of crime is that he falls in with Renee, which is his friend.
Yeah.
But what Truffaut does here is he makes a very big distinction between the two. Is that uh, is that Antoine Doinel is kicked out of his house. He's committing these crimes to literally survive. He's not when he wouldn't do it if he didn't have to do it. But Renee is obviously rich, like
Yeah.
filthy
Like a
rich,
lot,
and
a lot.
he's
Well, a lot more well off for sure.
yeah, and he's doing this basically for the fun of it. And
Hmm.
it creates this sort of class distinction between the two, and the fact that
Yeah.
it's Antoine that gets the sent to jail
Again,
and
that
sent to
gets
camp.
the comeuppance, the
Yeah,
the punishment,
yeah. When he
and
was
not the
actually,
rich one.
and he gets it when he was trying to right his wrong. He gets it when he's trying to do the right thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, and whereas Renee then sees him at the camp later, and Renee won't even go and say hi to him. He just like drops off some newspapers and leaves
Yeah.
because you know what I mean. It's definitely an
Hmm.
interesting dynamic. Is that he gets off scot free, but
Yeah. It definitely, it's sort of it's sort of like commenting on his privilege in a way, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, and it's just and it's like all he has to do is steal his grandma's money. And I find it funny. There's a line in there where Renee says, I'm just getting my future. I'm getting an advance on my inheritance."
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a
He
funny
knows he's
line.
set.
Yeah, it's a funny line that he doesn't even see it as stealing. He just sees it as his, and and it is that kind of like entitlement to
Hmm.
it's an entitlement to that money. So everything else is just it's just icing on the cake. For him, it's just something fun to do.
Yeah.
It's whatever. And but it also is kind of funny watching them because they're talking about a big heist they're gonna do, but while literally watching a puppet show for kids. You know, there's
Hmm.
this kind of dissonance between the two, and and that contrast to the scene that I think was right before it. It might be right after it, but I think it was right before it, where they're smoking cigars and like play gambling uh, in their room.
Yeah. And then the
The dad,
dad comes in or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and he's like,
And
this
then
looks like a gambling den,
yeah.
and so it's like it's like they're play acting as adults uh, in a kid's room, and then they're play acting as adults in like a children's show. It's kind of funny how Truffaut sort of um, uses the actual scenes and the settings to contrast what the characters are doing
Hmm.
within the film. But I want to talk too about there's this one shot that's really famous. Not the last shot because I want to save the last shot for near the end of the conversation.
Sure.
But it's a shot of them running through Paris, like it's the school, the classmates, and they're all sort of in a line running through
Right.
Paris, and they're all sort
Yeah.
of
Yeah. And then they all
dropping
kind of
off.
like duck out. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a well shot thing, and the 400 blows. I think I watched it for the first time maybe 9 years ago,
Hmm.
and so I was in Paris for a long time this last summer, or not this last summer, this last year, and
Do you like find all the locations they shot at?
well, actually, I stayed at my apartment was right next to one of the locations from the sequel called Stolen Kisses. So
Right.
I took a photo at that location. And it
That's
was,
cool.
yeah, it's at the École Militaire, which is the military
Mm,
school. I lived right across the street from the military school, so that was
cool.
that was really cool. But it is something in Paris that you see. You still see it. You see all these like school kids, running in lines with their teachers throughout Paris, and I always thought about 400 blows, and I thought, man, it would be so
Hmm.
easy for these kids to just sort of
To just
like
like
slip
dip
off.
out and like go
Yeah,
to the store, or like go and whatever.
yeah, exactly. And Truffaut, I think that in this movie, and this is going to sort of bring me to the thesis of why this movie works so well, is that the movie feels really, it feels real, and you never know what's
Hmm.
gonna you never know what's gonna happen next. Not because it's like this kind of twisty turny M Night Shyamalan type movie, but because it's it moves at a very natural pace, and everything is sort of
Yeah.
logically like, oh, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this sets
Hmm.
this off. But Sisson does it, but he does it in such a realistic way that you don't ever feel like you're watching like a written story. You know, it
Yeah. Well, I think he worked with his actors. Like he got really great. He got like really good like performances. Also, it's also I think what kind of blows my mind too about it is it feels so natural and just it's so easy to sort of watch and get sucked into, and yet I think a lot of it isn't it a lot of it dubbed like or
yeah,
like ADR
almost all of it
like a
is
lot of the
dubbed.
dialogue.
Yeah,
And it's like for them, I mean, there are a couple wide shots where it's noticeable for sure, but like for the most part, it's I wasn't even thinking about it. Like
yeah.
reading that after that really impressed me. I mean, lots of movies probably have mostly ADR dialogue, but I guess just like something like that, I
Yeah,
don't know.
and that's the whole French
And
New
just
Wave
the fact
thing.
that it just felt so because I guess because of the fact that the movie itself, you're right, it feels very naturalistic. Just like hearing that, all the dialogue that you're hearing is was actually not said on that set that you're watching.
Yeah, and that was
Kind of
a
cool.
that was like definitely with the French New Wave movies is that they didn't
Hmm.
really have the budgets. Well, they
For
yeah
like on-set audio.
yeah, and they were shooting like they were actually out in Paris shooting these films, And if you've
Hmm.
walked outside in Paris, like, I mean, there's a reason why I had to scrap a lot of my stuff with Sumita Media. We did like a watch Tampopo together, and we did like this sort of I'm forgetting the word commentary. We did like a commentary, and
Uh,
you hear ambulances in the back, and you hear all sorts of stuff like all the time. I mean, Paris is a very loud city, and so that was also a big thing is that Paris was a loud city, and within
so
the
like getting audio is just gonna get so like
yeah,
choppy and inconsistent,
it's
and
gonna
yeah, okay.
yeah, it's just gonna be so bad. And so
Uh-huh.
what they did on those older movies, and even in the smaller sets, those cameras were pretty loud, especially considering that this was the first like widescreen movie.
Hmm.
I'd imagine that the camera would be very loud unless they had a really good blimp. But uh, I think that maybe they recorded the audio during the psychoanalysis scene near the end, like the when he goes with the
Oh yeah, and then I
psychologist.
also read that was his like audition or his like screen test or his that's was that did I read that right
I don't know
or
if it was a
something or
screen.
like
It wasn't a.
not I might
Yeah,
not screen test so that's not the right word but like it was like it wasn't quite like it was sort of repurposed for that right like
it
the
might. Yeah,
psychiatrist
it might have
her
been.
questions were added after because like he just saw that scene thought it would work or something.
It. I'm not sure, but I know that it wasn't a scripted scene. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, he
Either
was.
way, that's like that. I thought that was again like impressive or something noteworthy.
Yeah, he was coached. So he was coached during that scene. But it wasn't scripted. It was pretty much off the cuff from Leod, and
Did he know? I'm sorry for interrupting. Did he know his like own character's backstory and stuff by that point?
yeah, I think he
Or
did.
was he or like what? Or was he kind of making it up? Like
Honestly, with
did Truffaut say like, okay, this is your given circumstances, go improv, or was it like, hey, you're troubled. What do you know?
Yeah. So with
say come up with your own thing on the spot.
so with
Probably not that.
with Jean-Pierre Léaud, if you watched the audition of Jean-Pierre Léaud, I mean, he acts a lot like Antoine Doinel, like in real life, and he has this
Uh,
very sort of
okay,
like, uh, it his essence. If I'm gonna sound pretentious, but his essence is
sure.
this kind of like strange mix of like lackadaisical, but also very thoughtful. You know,
Hmm.
it's kind of like he's always he always has something on his mind. He's very driven, but he's also very just like blasé about things.
He
And
doesn't doesn't let things get to him too
Yeah,
much, or like,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And you know, in the later
I mean,
films,
I
like
guess it's probably just what Truffaut saw in him, and probably just why he like,
yeah, and actually,
asked him.
and Jean Pierre Léaud actually skipped school to go to the audition, and he
Mm,
didn't even like he didn't. I don't even think he fit the
like the
call.
description or
Yeah, he
the
just
breakdown.
from what I understood. Now I could be wrong on this, but from what I understood is that he just kind of showed up. His mom was an
Hmm.
actress, or his parents were like creative people. But and she was like, "Hey, there's this audition for this movie. You should go." And he's like, "Okay, whatever, I'll go." And so his audition, he's like the most laid back person you'll ever see in an audition. He's just like, "I just decided to come today."
Hmm.
And they're like, "Aren't you supposed to be in school?" And he's like, "Yeah." And yeah, it's a really funny audition. But he has this sense about him. I know that this conversation is going to be really sort of scattered because you know we're talking about how the film progresses very naturalistically. Of course, we have to talk about how the actors, where because with Leod, everything that he says is Dwanell. It just feels everything he says, and not just what he says, but just how he carries himself feels so
Hmm.
natural to the character. You never feel like he's acting.
Yeah, and again, I guess that's sort of what I was trying to get at with the ADR comment, just because
Yeah,
it, you're thinking about it, and like he has to perform his character twice.
yeah,
It's like he's got to do it right when he's on set, and then he's got to find it again after the fact. And I mean, like, I think he did like they all, all the actors I thought like did really great.
yeah,
Uh,
and that's his
Felt
real
like
yeah,
really fit their characters really well.
and that's his real
The dad
voice.
was the dad was interesting too, because like
Yeah, I like the dad.
I guess both the parents as well, because like you're almost the way that it plays with like how you sort of view them, or like because like in the beginning the dad came across to me as like more like laid back and like almost like like likable or like fun, or something. He had like kind of a higher energy to him, but then like as the movie goes on, it's like you start, I don't know, I kind of question how I felt, and I thought that the the fact the parents, like you ultimately, I guess they're antagonistic for sure, but they're not and authoritarian, but they're not like I don't know. I guess they could. They felt human, or they felt like they felt there was something like truthful, or like
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
and I think especially the dad and
hmm.
the mom is you start to see because it's interesting how Truffaut sort of plays out the relationship with between Dwayne and his parents. That it starts off as like this happy family, and it's over the
Hmm.
course of the movie we start to see all the fractures and fissions within this family dynamic. That the mom kind of hates him and really didn't want
Yeah,
him, and the dad's not even his dad, and
yeah,
he's trying to
actually. So I
find
take back what I just said.
yeah, and he's trying to find like Dwanell is trying to find happiness within the family, and of course it's French New Wave that they find happiness by
Hmm.
going to the cinema, but
Right.
it's a
Yeah.
very short lived happiness, and actually Truffaut didn't really like people who were like major cinephiles. He has a quote that's like people who love film are sick. And he saw like people who like loved going to the movies as like trying to make up for something lacking in their life, which hit me pretty hard because I like going to the movies.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's interesting that he has that perspective for sure.
Yeah,
But I
and
mean. I can understand
Yeah.
where someone would gain that perspective, I guess.
Do you think the parents started liking him right before he gets kicked out of the class?
What
Uh,
was that?
ZCM Zombie
Oh,
custom
oh, I
match.
see the comment.
Yeah, it
Do
says
you think the parents started liking him before?
right before
Hmm.
he gets kicked out of the class.
I mean, actually, now that we're talking about like sort of the reveal and like what we found out, I kind of do question, I guess the validity or the truthfulness of like I guess those earlier scenes or you know or whenever they are
Yeah.
happy. Like maybe you could argue that it is that it is like a facade for sure.
Yeah, and you see with the parents how they do put up a facade. Like we see the dad slap him in
Yeah,
the
he
classroom, but then he
slaps the
lies
kid
about it later.
in front of his friends
Yeah,
too.
in front of
Yeah,
his
and
friends,
like in the class.
but then
Yeah.
to the cops, I may be misremembering, but I don't think I am. Doesn't he say that he doesn't slap him, or he kind of like he says he
He brought
doesn't? They bring it up.
whatever. Yeah, I don't remember the line either, but I think you're right that like he does like minimize it or that he does sort of he doesn't fully own up.
Yeah, he doesn't
Uh,
fully own up, and you see how the parents do act differently in public or differently to other people than they act
mhm.
to Antoine. And
Yeah,
and it is sort of
and
like this.
again,
They
just
put on a
showing you that
face.
like showing like the world from his perspective, seeing how he is constantly being told that he has to live up to the standard that the adults that are telling him to live up to this standard aren't even doing themselves.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with you, Zombie. Yeah, the film almost twists the coming of age trope on its head. Yeah, and I think that's partially why it stood
Yeah,
out. Is
because
that
it's saying it's very much saying you don't have to conform. You can go do if going out and doing your own thing is what makes you happy. You know.
yeah, that it shows that like it's not about the loss of innocence. It's more about the sort of trying to keep
Gaining of individuality.
the gaining of individuality, but also keeping that innocence because you see how it's just made the adult character so just harsh and so like I don't know, just bitter. And
Bureaucratic.
you know
Bitter.
the yeah, and you know the other thing that uh you, you know the other thing that was interesting about this whole idea of how they wanted to put on like a public face is near the end the mom says to Antoine that everyone in the neighborhood is talking about their I guess it's their affair or what happened because of what Antoine said to the dad. And then Antoine said, I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just goes to show that everyone knows all of this. I mean, it's like she was kissing the guy in public. And it's also
Yeah, she wasn't
yeah.
really hiding it. She just
Yeah.
like turned away from him, but not from anyone else. Then
Yeah.
also too, there's when he writes like the poem in class and he gets in trouble because the teacher thinks he's like plagiarized it.
Yeah. Well, he
Like thing,
kind of plagiarized
or
it.
he kind of does. He kind of yeah,
Yeah. But he gets way too harsh a punishment and it's the
like
whole thing is
yeah,
that
yeah, and then like he like yeah,
it's like he's 14, he's reading Balzac, and obviously he's very inspired by it. And
uh
it kind of goes into the creative mindset, right? Is that when you really when you really fall in love with a certain creative, you invariably at first copy. You start
yeah,
to because you want to be like that person, so you start copying the person, and once you copy the person, you sort of realize what works for you and what doesn't from your own perspective.
hmm
And so it is kind of interesting that he starts off his love affair with Balzac by
or
copying
yeah,
him.
or by copying him. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. Again, I missed that.
yeah,
Uh,
and how he hides away in a printing press, which is also kind of funny. In
mm.
in Pigalle too, it like it's so funny because his friend is like, yeah, I got a place we can stay in Pigalle, and if you've ever been to Paris, Pigalle is not a very good neighborhood. It's like
Mm.
it's like the where all the sex shops are and everything like that. It's kind of it's a very seedy neighborhood, right next to Montmartre, and yeah, and so when he's like, yeah, I got a place we can stay overnight in Pigalle, That's probably where, because he talks about later going and trying to pick up hookers. That would probably be in Pigalle. Um, but yeah, so it is funny. It's kind of like the film is about a boy who wants to express himself creatively, and there's these sort of authoritarian figures around his life. But
Hmm.
getting back to the whole thing with his parents, I know that if I was a kid, if I was 14 and I was out playing hooky or something like that, and I saw my mom with another guy,
Hmm.
my first thought wouldn't be, um, wow, because I've got this dirt on her, she's not going to tell dad. Like there'd be more pressing issues at mind. I'd be like, oh my gosh, my mom is cheating on my dad. But we don't know at that time that he doesn't even really consider that guy his dad. It's kind of like it's whatever. He,
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
yeah, you know, the
Uh-huh.
family dynamic is not there, and it's just, and really
Yeah.
just, and also who kicks out their 14-year-old who, I mean, what did he do? He said his mom was dead because he just choked. He didn't want to say she broke a leg. Um, you know, it was.
Yeah.
I always laugh when he's like, "Elle est morte," and you see his face too when he says that, and it's like he realizes it's like that it's like that meme. It's like, and at that moment he realized he fucked up.
Or like Ron Howard narration,
Yeah,
Arrested Development, kind
yeah,
of. Well, what's that? What is? Realized he made a huge mistake or whatever.
yeah,
That
yeah.
that's the line.
Yeah, and you see that in his face where he says it
Yeah.
immediately. He regrets it, but he can't take it back.
Hmm.
And he's just, and yeah, and of course it's like in the next scene they get found out, and it's because of that like POS kid that went to his parents.
Yeah, the bully, the kid, he like eavesdrops on him. Meanwhile, that
Yeah,
kid's
yeah,
skipping school too. Then,
yeah. That kid was skipping
right?
school.
So it's like, and he doesn't get in trouble either.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's because he's like the goody two shoes. They call him a
Because he's
brown
a
nose.
snitch.
Yeah, he's a
He's
snitch.
a snitch.
You know what character he is? Have you ever seen that? Did you ever watch that show Recess?
I think I missed out. I think that was one
Okay,
of the ones I like missed out on.
he's like Randall. He's like the little kid with the curly hair. He's snitching on everyone. That's that kid, and he does get his comeuppance in a way because he gets his like special glasses like just totally destroyed by all the kids.
Right,
But he got
right.
those
Yeah, when he's like
glasses.
talking.
He got those
Yeah.
glasses by stealing money from his parents. So it's a funny sort of thing, or he's snitching on other people, but he's just as bad. Just
Hmm.
maybe trying to save face. And yeah, and actually there's a couple Truffaut cameos in there. He's in that
Yeah, I think
spinning.
there were a couple moments where it looked. Tell me where, and I might be wrong. I thought I saw a couple moments where it could have, or a moment it looked like
Yeah.
he, where I thought it was him.
Well, of
Where,
course,
where,
yeah.
where did he show up?
He was in the when they're in the spinning thing, the what's it
Yeah, in
called?
the ride.
Yeah, he's one of the members there, and it's
Oh, he's
kind of,
like he's also on the ride.
yeah, he's also in the ride. I mean, if I was directing and like we had a shot like looking down at the ride, I'd be like, yeah, I'll hop on. This
Yeah, I don't
this
know.
is fun.
I do not have strong. My stomach is not strong enough for one of those.
Yeah, you
If I
gotta.
was directing a scene, I would not want to ride it. It would not be where I would do my director cameo for sure.
I don't know how much he was directing while he was on that scene. I think it's just like just have the
Just
camera
trying to come up
rolling
with as
and
many angles so they can do as many rides.
yeah, and I was thinking about how they shot that scene too, because it's obvious when they're looking up at the audience members or the people kind of looking down that it's like a mat or it's like a fake ride, like a miniature that the camera's in, because it's kind of
Right.
it's obvious, looking at it now. But I was also
Like the
thinking.
POV shots.
Yeah, the
Yeah, okay,
POV
yeah.
shots are obviously using sort of like a false wall, and then just spinning the camera around, and or something of that nature. That's what it seemed like to me, at least. And then the other interesting thing that I was thinking about is when you see Antoine kind of like worming his way, weaseling his way around, like to get upside down.
Yeah.
I thought maybe they did this like where he's on the ground, but it's shaking and you still feel the movement. So I don't know. Maybe they actually did put the camera inside, for
I
that.
mean, I mean, I mean, I wasn't really watching the scene to kind of figure out how they were doing it, I guess. But like,
Yeah,
if they did do something other than just putting the camera in the center and just spinning, having the rat actually going, for at least for that shot of the kid like on the wall, like spinning around, like I have no idea how they did it then. Like
yeah,
that's not how they did it.
yeah.
Uh,
It's always interesting to sort of think about these older movies because they didn't have
yeah,
the tricks. Yeah, they
the
didn't have the
tricks or resources
resources.
or
Yeah,
yeah.
they had to do it for real, And I think that probably the film to really talking about uh, sort of all these like camera tricks when you're talking about French New Wave is Breathless. Although I watched Alphaville the other day, the Godard film, because all like a lot of his movies are up on a Criterion channel,
Hmm.
and there's this really cool shot in Alphaville. Now I'll get back to talking about 400 Blows in just a second, but this really stood out, and it's kind of near the beginning of the film, where the main guy it's all one shot where he walks into an elevator, and the elevator goes up, and the camera goes up too, following the elevator. It's all in one shot from him in the lobby going up, and then obviously they had like a secondary elevator shaft that they put the camera on that goes up to like the third floor or something like that, and then tracks him as he walks down the hotel
I'll look up
hallway.
the shot because now I'm curious to see it.
It's a really cool shot, and I'm
Is it
thinking,
on? Can I look it up on YouTube?
I don't know if it's on.
I look up like Alphaville
I don't know how much.
elevator.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be on YouTube. I don't know how much discussion or clips of Alphaville there are because it's kind of like once you get out of the big movies, it's almost hard to find. It's actually kind of hard to find some stuff on 400 Blows. There's not a lot. Uh,
So you're saying that the camera it followed him into the elevator and then it
no,
wait, say that again?
it stays outside of the elevator,
It's
and
I mean like it stays outside the elevator, but it goes up with the
it
elevator.
goes up with the elevator.
So
Yeah,
it's filming from a inside the shaft, but outside the elevator is what you're saying, or
no,
from another.
it's like
I'm
an
sorry. Wait, this is like
no,
wait. I
yeah, no, it's a really cool shot. It's not actually in the shaft because it's like a French style, Parisian style elevator. So it's if you been to Paris and you see that the elevators are kind of in between the stairs. It's not really like an American.
So this is like a staircase slash elevator shaft, is what
Yeah,
you're saying.
yeah,
And so
exactly.
the camera is like going up the stairs as like they're going up the elevator,
Well,
right?
not going up the stairs. It literally
Oh,
goes up with the elevator. So it's going straight up. It's
oh,
not on
like
the stairs at all.
oh,
But they
okay,
had
okay. I
like
think
this tiny space.
now I can like visualize more
Yeah.
what you're saying for
Yeah,
sure. That's really cool.
they have like a tiny space between the elevator and the stairs where they were somehow able to get the camera up, and no, it's
Huh?
really cool. And thinking about how this was done in the 60s, I'm like, cuz nowadays it's like you see a shot like that and you go, yeah, that takes a lot to do, but so what? It's like cameras are tiny. You can put it on, you know what I mean? Like if you saw that how they
Well, yeah. I mean, like everyone's doing
everyone's
you
doing those
know
kinds of stuff like the
cool
opening of
shit with
Spectre.
cameras.
Yeah, the opening of Spectre, if you see the coordination of that, which the opening shot was the best part of the film. And but going back to the 400 Blows, you have to think that these people were making this film in 1958. I mean, it came out in 59, but they're
Yeah, but they
making it.
probably shot it the year before.
Yeah, so they're making it in 58. And I mean, the what the camera work really does for me with the 400 Blows is it presents Paris in like this. I mean, it's a very nostalgic look at Paris, especially with the music that plays alongside it. But it's such a
Hmm.
beautiful looking film. To think that they had to move super fast through the whole film, like through the whole shooting, they were moving like super quickly, and you know what I mean. And they're shooting like on the
Well, yeah,
streets.
I guess because the scenes are shot like in relatively few setups. So I mean, I can see how they like were able to save time.
Yeah,
I guess in that way.
yeah, and it's
But like you're right, that is surprising. I guess to hear. And I guess too like all the outdoor stuff, like in Paris, like in the city where there are like other like civilians, I'm assuming were like
Yeah,
just
like
there,
real
like they weren't.
people.
Those were just
Yeah,
like real people like walking around.
yeah. I wouldn't be
Like they shot it
I wouldn't be
guerrilla
surprised.
style like that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of movies I've covered on this channel that were shot guerrilla style. Like Metropolitan was also done that way. But with the 400 blows, what I was noticing earlier is because it has this like 235:1 aspect ratio, and it makes it feel like this epic within a small scale, and it unless you knew like the process of how it was shot, it feels like it does feel like a higher budgeted movie, like much higher
Yeah,
budget
no,
than what it
it
actually
does
does.
have it does. I think the way I think the camera and the lens choice for sure gives
Yeah.
it an air of like a movie with probably higher production values than they had.
Yeah,
Uh,
and you have to think. I don't
and
think
also, I mean,
any. Yeah,
I'm assuming too they're using they picked like the right locations and the right sets and they in terms of I guess like what they utilized in order to tell the story. I mean, because it's not like it is a lower key story, so it does give them, I guess, some uh, leeway in that regard.
yeah. It's definitely it's an interesting sort of thing that's going on between the story and the cinematography that creates this clash, and really the film is, and I'd say most good films are this sort of like a collection of contradictions, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas it's kind of like it's a small story told on a big screen, which I met. So I briefly worked with the director James Ponsel a few years ago. I was
Hmm.
running a venue in the Atlanta Film Festival. Super nice guy, and he had the same thing when he made The Spectacular Now, is that he shot it on the widescreen ratio. I think it was 240:1 or 235:1, because he wanted to have that clash of the small story but on a big scale. And it's
Hmm.
the same thing in 400 Blows. I think 400 Blows might be like the film to sort of be the progenitor of this, idea. And
Hmm.
of course, Hateful Eight also was another one, but I wasn't a huge fan of Hateful Eight. But
I liked it.
but
I had fun with it.
but with the 400 Blows, it's like this. It's that contradiction, and within the movie, there are other contradictions. That we've discussed. That the main character is a contradiction in himself. He's a criminal, but he's an artist. He's someone who suffers injustices, but he's also an optimist. And
Hmm.
and then his family on the outside appears normal, but really within they're broken, and
They're
it's just,
barely a family.
yeah, and it's all these sorts of contradictions within life, but that's just kind of how life is. It's a lot more complicated than and it's a
Yeah.
lot more complicated than that, and it really allows Truffaut to get deep and to really kind of puncture the sort of surface level narrative very quickly. And he does it
Yeah.
super efficiently too. I mean, really all within that first classroom scene.
Yeah. Like you very much get the dynamic pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, it's also I guess also interesting too the way that he sort of doesn't really resolve much by the end. It's just the kid runs away, and some guy is chasing him, but you don't know. I mean, obviously there's a sequel, so you know where he goes. But like, assuming that that this was like a standalone thing, like
Yeah.
where it leaves you off is like a very interesting place to do that.
Yeah, and
Like, I,
so yeah, and that last shot, gosh, I mean
yeah,
that.
also because like it's not like he has some sort of I guess the closest thing to a big sort of monologue or whatever, I guess, is like the psychiatrist interview scene. But like otherwise, he's like a lot of the movie is us sort of inferring how he is feeling based off of his performance and his actions.
Yeah, and
And there aren't really
yeah,
any, but again, besides the one scene, you really don't.
you don't see
There
much
aren't
into his
any.
backstory.
Yeah, or there aren't any moments when he just like it's not like he before he leaves runs into the middle of the field and like gives this big declaration or some kind of like big rousing speech before running away to music or whatever. He just runs and then we follow him.
Yeah, yeah, that's a that's a good
Like I like the film, he was staying true to the character and not trying to be conventional or trying to be like crowd pleasing in that way.
yeah, and it's funny. I mean, because you talk about his like last monologue is with the psychologist, but it doesn't actually show any of what's going on then and now.
Not really, no.
It's literally just fleshing out backstory,
Yeah,
and he says it really nonchalantly. It's not an emotional monologue. He says it like
no.
it's so just like whatever. This is yeah, it's
Hmm.
my life.
The
It's
most emotional he gets, I think, is when he's being taken away, right? Or when he's in the
yeah,
back of the cop car.
yeah.
He's like looking back at the city he once ran around in.
And it's in
Now
this
he's being taken away from. Yeah.
it's in this film now. It's in this film that you definitely see how Truffaut was very inspired by Bresson because casting really a non-professional actor and the way that Jean-Pierre Léaud sort of carries himself is very just like it's not quite like as extreme as like the Bresson models carried themselves, but it's definitely in this sort of like he's not really emoting a whole lot, but you get to see there's something about his face where it's like you always know how he's feeling, but he's never really emoting. He's expressing, I would say, if we're gonna like make a
Yeah.
distinction between the two. Everything is just so natural. He doesn't need to emote. He doesn't need to perform. You
I
know?
also think too, probably the way that it was cut and the times at which we do see his face. I think also helped.
Yeah.
The time I think the film's timing was overall like really really strong.
Yeah. And I mean, once we get to that last like two shots where it's him running through the woods and then him running to the beach, and it's just a very like liberating feeling at the end. And I think,
Yeah, and it's also like pacing wise too. It sort of is like a breather compared
mhm.
to like the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
it's like this like long drawn out silent moment, or where they're I guess if they're other than the music. Uh,
yeah,
you're
Brendan,
gonna say
you're right. Yeah, Brendan says the last time you see his face is great acting, tells you everything you need to know. Yeah, exactly. And actually, there's a funny story about the last time you see his face. You know how it kind of freeze frames and zooms in.
yeah, the freeze frame and zooms in. Yep.
Is that he wasn't doing exactly what Truffaut wanted him to do. I think that the initial thing I'm not sure what the initial thing he was supposed to do was. Like maybe he was supposed to stop or he was supposed to like keep running. I forget. You guys can look it up. But he wasn't getting what Truffaut really wanted, so Truffaut freeze framed on the expression that he wanted and went in on that. I think that's a story. This could be like a tall tale that I heard, but
Sure.
it would make sense. But a thing I wanted to bring up with this like last two shots, we're seeing him running, and the last shot is like this expanse. It's the beach is humongous. And it's just like this huge expanse. And really throughout the film, Truffaut had been subtly getting us into more and more claustrophobic environments. We've been like
Mm.
it starts off
Yeah.
with all these like vistas of Paris and everything like that, and running around, and then as he
Then
gets
eventually
kicked
he's in a
out,
cage.
eventually he's in a cage. Yeah, it's a very subtle sort of downward spiral to this
Hmm.
claustrophobic. Where he's in like a literally like a basement or like a cellar sleeping. Drinking,
Hmm.
smoking the cigarette. And even when he's staying with Renee, it's a very sort of claustrophobic environment. And then it's like
Despite the big house.
yeah, yeah, despite it being a big house, which, I mean, is a great metaphor in itself, and then it's like this last shot is just air. And you feel like you can really breathe, and he's
Hmm.
just running. And you also know that you don't know what he's running to. You
No,
don't
you
know
don't.
what's going to happen next, but it really doesn't matter because it's more of an emotional ending than
Hmm.
a narrative one. The narrative ending was that he was sent to this camp. It's like, honestly, you could have just ended it with him playing soccer. But this ending, I think, is really what took the film. Which the film, if it had just ended with him playing soccer, would still be a great film. But it's not like that. Those last few shots make it just one of the
Yeah, I think
best.
that it gives it the punch that it sort of gives. It sort of makes it. I feel like if it didn't have those like last few minutes, it wouldn't have as strong of a statement.
Yeah, and so there's a movie that completely rips the ending of this film.
Really,
Yeah,
which film?
it's a film you might have seen, The Squid and the Whale.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, so
I'm trying to. I have vague memories. I watched it probably when I was too young.
yeah,
Like I think I was like 12 or 13. I think it was like pretty. I was like
watch the last.
that age.
Yeah, watch the last. Yeah,
It ends with
watch the last five
it ends
minutes.
with like Jesse. He like
He
if it's like
runs.
Jesse Eisenberg's like character, he runs, doesn't he?
He runs to
And that
the
it's
to the
supposed to be
aquarium.
like he runs to the aquarium.
Yeah, to the aquarium to see the image of the squid and the whale fighting because he was always scared of it as a kid. But they literally
Right.
do the shot where it's Dolly on the side, Jesse Eisenberg running, holding the same posture as Jean-Pierre Léaud in the 400 Blows. He kind of runs in the same way,
Well,
and yeah, and they like replicate that shot at the end of the Squid and the
I
Whale.
mean, but I bet there are probably other movies that
Well,
where you can find
I think I
references.
think I think I know the reason is Wes Anderson produced that, and Wes Anderson always like you can catch
Oh, you
a
think it was
four.
like an in joke? Like Noah
Yeah,
Baumbach was like making like a little in joke that because Wes was.
it might have been. I'm not going to say for sure, but like in Rushmore, you see a few references. And in fact, the opening of Rushmore, the looking behind the class at the teacher,
Yeah,
is like a reference to 400
that felt
Blows.
very reminiscent. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few references in Rushmore. There's a reference in Bottle Rocket when Owen Wilson is playing pinball in Bottle Rocket. That actually is,
Hmm.
the shot. It's made to be like the shot from the 400 Blows when Antoine is playing pinball. And so in his movies, because I think that Wes Anderson said that like 400 Blows was like the transformative movie for him, that he sort of modeled his whole career after this one movie. And so yeah, it could just be like an in joke, but also it worked for the Squid and the Whale. Like it worked, so I'm not going to complain. Like if it works, it works. Even
Yeah.
if it's like taken,
Ultimately,
even if it's
yeah.
like taken
Even if
from
it's not the
something.
most original, if it's like emotionally truthful for the moment, it works.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not like I don't complain. I still think Squid and the Whale is one of Baumbach's best, um, but
I need to
yeah,
rewatch. I need to watch rewatch that and then like watch more of his earlier stuff.
his earlier stuff is pretty good. I actually kind of prefer it to his later stuff. If
Ooh.
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I know.
I really enjoyed Marriage Story and Meyerowitz stories as
Yeah,
well.
I liked Meyerowitz stories more than Marriage Story, but
Hmm.
we can save that for a different. We'll save that for a different stream.
I might need to rewatch Meyerowitz stories, but like I thought, I was very into Marriage Story. I also really enjoyed the
I'm a big Adam Sandler fan when he's not in an Adam Sandler
in
movie.
Happy
In the
Madison
Happy
movies.
Madison movie, yeah. Uh, Brendan
So
Krause is
you're a big fan of three of his films.
yeah, exactly. Punch Drunk Love, Uncut Gems, and Meyerowitz stars.
Meyerowitz.
So Brendan
Yeah, no,
Krause,
those are all three great movies for sure.
yeah, Brendan Krause says Bomback is what you get if Truffaut is a rich white guy living in present day. Like, maybe. Uh, yeah, I mean, I actually think that the more apt description is Bomback is like a less creepy Woody Allen. Um, his movies to me feel a bit more along the lines of Woody Allen, if I'm going to be honest. Especially Marriage Story kind of had like this like early like Manhattan kind of vibe with the way that he
Yeah.
incorporated music and the kind of the pacing of the film and the style of humor and
Also, I
everything.
guess the I felt like, and maybe I need again a reason why maybe I need to rewatch like his earlier films, but like the way that Marriage Story was shot felt a lot very deliberate.
Yeah.
a lot, or at least more so than like I had remembered his like other movies.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, The Squid and the Whale is shot very indie, 16 millimeter, but I mean, yeah, we can talk about Noah Baumbach. We got to get back to Francois Truffaut.
sure.
So Francois Truffaut with the 400 blows. Yeah, I mean, the last shot really, I think, is what cements the film as great. And Antoine Duanel. Then, for anyone who doesn't know, the 400 blows is actually the first movie in a whole series.
So
So
yeah, so then what happens? So he just like goes on and does more petty crime, or does it go more places? Does it
So
turn into something?
yeah, so actually, I absolutely love this series, especially so. What comes after the 400 blows is a short film called Antoine et Colette, which is
Huh.
30 minutes, and it was part of a collection, like an anthology of shorts. It's like one of those movies where it's like
So
2 hours and different directors do almost like Paris Je t'aime and a few movies like that. And
so
then
it's like the first cinematic universe
Yeah, this is
in
this
that
is
case.
this is a Truffaut cinematic universe. Um, this is Truffaut's Iron Man,
Yep.
and
Turns out Marvel, they were inspired by the French New Wave too.
yeah, exactly. And so so actually, the cinematic universe goes deep. All right, there's some depth to this. So
Okay.
after Antoine et Colette is Baiser Volé, which is translated as Stolen Kisses, and
Right.
it sees a 18 maybe 19-year-old Antoine Duanel. He gets kicked out of military at the very beginning. That was the école militaire that I lived by. And he kind of works all these odd jobs, and he can't hold a job down, and he becomes a private investigator.
Hmm.
And
So
at the same, yeah, it becoms like this,
so it
like,
is.
but it's
So
comedy.
it's become like Duanel solves murders or crimes or whatever.
No, it's kind of like it's played out like very light, like a very lighthearted comedy. And
Okay.
and really the main story of it isn't like the him being a private dick, but it's him falling in love with this girl, and
Uh,
yeah, and so then in the next film, which is called Bed and Board, or Mariage Conjugal in French, he's married to this woman, and he gets a job, and they have a kid, but he has an affair, and he gets a
ooh,
mistress. Yeah, and then it causes that one is hilarious.
like
That
mother like son.
Yeah, that film is hilarious. Just for the scene where his wife finds out is cinematic gold. But
Hmm.
this is where the cinematic universe goes deep. There is a there is a another French character who comes into Bed and Board for a very brief amount of time, and that is Monsieur Hulot. If you know who Jacques Tati is,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. What?
yeah. So
Like the actual character?
the character, but it wasn't Jacques Tati playing as him. But Francois Truffaut had an actor play as he's credited as Monsieur
Oh
Hulot.
God.
So
So they pulled like what's the Andy Kaufman character? The shit. Where oh shit, you just cut off.
I cut off. Can you hear me?
Oh, no, you can't. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
Wait, I'm looking at. I have the thing open, so I'm seeing. Never mind.
Yeah. Don't worry
Anyway,
about it.
you were fine. Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah. So
the
it's
Andy Kaufman character.
yeah. What's it? The one who like talks shit. He got himself in like a lot of trouble.
I
Shit. What's the character? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I think, but it's been a while
I was
since I've
making it.
familiarized myself with Kaufman. I went through a phase where I like watched all of his stuff, and that was a few years
uh,
ago. Like his going on late nights.
Tony Clifton. Tony Clifton.
Tony
That's what I was
Clifton.
trying to say. Like they Tony Clifton, Miss Mansour Hulot, like
Yeah.
had someone else be him instead of
Instead of
Jacques Tati.
yeah. So yeah, and it's in a train station. You see Mr. Hulot like kind of do his Hulot thing getting into the train, and I was like, so I guess 400 Blows takes place in the same world as Playtime. Uh,
Yeah, what?
yeah. Uh, so there's
Did Jacques Tati like publicly acknowledge it or?
um you know what? He might have. I mean, like I'm assuming that Truffaut also was friends with Tati because that whole
Right.
community was pretty
Yeah,
tight
they're in
knit
the
back
same.
then.
They're of like the same era for yeah.
Yeah, and then as far as Jean Pierre Léaud, he was in tons. So he was in tons of movies in the '60s. He was in several of Godard's films.
Hmm.
He was in
Yeah, he still acts, right? Or like he
I
was in like wasn't he like in like a movie fairly recently? He did was that him? Or am I thinking of someone else? The Death of Louis.
oh yeah, Breathless takes place in the same world as Bob Le Flambeur. Both great films. I actually prefer Bob Le Flambeur. I love Melville. Um, Melville's style is honestly unbeatable. But yeah, Jean Pierre Léaud. He might have been in a movie recently. I mean, like, I guess he's in his 70s now. I want to say,
Yeah.
yeah,
He played King Louis the I don't want to say the number because I don't remember.
Jean Pierre.
The 14th or something. I'm gonna
It's funny on his IMDb. It still has a picture of him from when
I
he was
could be
like
wrong.
14. Uh, so he played as Jean Pierre Léaud. Uh, yeah, the death of Louis the 14th. He
Yeah.
played as Louis the 14th. Oh, he's
Yeah,
also in
that's right.
the. Yeah,
I watched that like whenever like a year or two ago or whatever. It's literally the entire movie takes place in his bedroom, and it's literally a 2 hour movie of him slowly dying at his
huh.
bedside,
That sounds interesting. I kind of
and
want
his
to.
his sort of like I don't know what the proper sort of term for like the higher ups or his like lower the
Yeah, the upper
people
echelon.
working for him. Yeah, like the whoever, or like they're like scrambling trying to figure out what to or not scrambling, but it's a really slow movie. I shouldn't say scrambling, but
Yeah.
like it was interesting. He was like his performance was really like just very the way that he was able to like portray certain like twitches and like sort of things or those sorts of qualities of like getting really old and dying of a horrible disease. uh
Yeah.
like I thought he like the way that he performed the way he sold it like really really well in his performance.
Yeah, I mean he's a really great actor. I mean he's probably up there with like Alain Delon and Gerard Depardieu as far as like some of the French greats. I
Mm-hmm.
mean like a lot of people talk about like the French great actresses, and that's a very easy list of Catherine Deneuve being obviously like primo, Anna
Mm-hmm.
Karina, although I think she was Danish actually, but she was in French movies, and I mean plenty of others, and but yeah, I mean, he. So, anyways, I want to say Jean Pierre Léaud was in plenty of films, and he was in another film. Now we're gonna start wrapping this up. If people want to like have questions for, yeah, there's too many Jean Pierres. Yeah, if people have questions for me or Jared, ask them in the comments. I know that there's a little bit of a lag, uh, so we'll probably get those answers in just a second. And
Yeah, if any five of you have any questions.
yeah, and I wanted to say Jean Pierre Léaud is in a movie I'm going to be doing a video on very soon, and that's Day for Night.
Oh, I have had that DVD. Been meaning to watch it for many years now.
Have you seen Wes Anderson's American Express commercial?
I have. Is Day for Night is that like a parody of Day for Night
Yeah, it's a
or like
parody.
a takeoff? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Okay. What
Okay,
is?
you've piqued my interest a bit more for sure. Now that
Yeah.
I know that, I didn't realize that was what that was a reference to.
Yeah, and even plays the theme song to Day for Night, in the American Express commercial.
Oh, okay.
All right, here we go.
That's so odd. You would never see that now.
Yeah.
You would never see like a movie like that being referenced in like a big ad like that.
Yeah, only with him Like
Only with West.
his ads almost never have anything to do with what they're selling. That's kind of the funny
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It's just like at the end, it's just like buy this. It's like Prada candy. It's like here's this kind of like Jules
Or like
Lejeune,
the
yeah,
when he did the for the
Castello,
yeah Prada and then
yeah,
the train ad for like the clothing line or whatever,
yeah, H and
and it's
M
just like
come together. It
yeah
has
or
nothing
H
to
and
do.
M
It has
right or
nothing to do
whatever,
with H&M. It's just like, yeah, no, I
just like
like
a
that style.
some yeah
I feel good
fun scene on a train.
because it's like, wait, this company is cool enough to give West money to just like make like a 30-second short and just put their brand at the end. I'm like, you know what? They're cool. Like they're higher up in my book now. But anyway, so Zombie Custom Map says, what is your favorite Melville film? So, Jared, have you seen many films by Melville?
I don't think I've seen any.
Oh, okay.
Uh, did he? I may have seen a clip from one of his films for one of my classes. One with like a spy character.
Is that like
If you
was
said the title,
was it
I
list?
might.
Okay, so I've seen just
If you
about
said the title, I might know.
I've seen just about all of his films. So there was Le Samurai with Alain Delon. There
Not
was
that one.
Le
I've heard
Cercle.
of that one though.
Was it Army of Shadows?
Maybe
Yeah, about
it
the
might have
French.
been. I might have seen a clip from that for
Yeah,
one of my classes.
yeah, because he has. Let me
It's
see
like
the.
really, it's like really like dreamlike or like it's like the way that it's edited is like
Yeah,
very subconscious or like it's sort of putting you in his head more than it is like telling you a objective story, right?
yeah, and that's kind of Melville's thing. He has this very sort of cool aesthetic to his stuff. So like I loved like I don't think there's a single Melville film I've seen that I haven't really at least really liked.
Hmm.
Like there's one of his more underrated films actually is Two Men in Manhattan, which is a noir film about
Hmm.
reporters like or French. It's like French reporters, and it stars Melville. He plays as the main character.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's also funny because it's mostly in French. Some of it's in English, and all the English speakers are Americans are portrayed as pretty dumb in there, and the way that the Americans speak French is absolutely hilarious. But I would say that my favorite Melville film, it's a toss up. It's honestly it depends on the day. So I love Le Samurai. Like Le Samurai is really what got me into Melville. That was my first film of his, and but Army of Shadows is just absolutely amazing, and so is Le Cercle Rouge. That's kind of a not a throat twister for me. The Red Circle. Um, yeah, I haven't seen Rififi. I've seen that director's other film Judex, and that was pretty good. But uh, his Melville's first film, Le Silence de la Mer, is really it's spectacular as well. And it's a very simple film, and it's about like a Nazi who's like quartered with these French people, and he's a ideologue, and so he's kind of like he's taught like it's the whole film is like a monologue by him, and what the film is about is he has like this idea how they're bringing Europe together and like it's all this sort of like almost like propaganda type stuff. And as the film sort of goes along and things get more drawn out, he starts to see things how they really are, and he becomes very disillusioned, and
Hmm.
he ends up like yeah, he ends up becoming friends with the French. It's a very subtle. The way that it really portrays it is very subtle and nuanced. It's a really great watch. I mean, the actors are just great. How's Le Cercle? I can never say it.
The Red
The
Circle.
Red Circle. That movie is awesome. That movie is like that is awesome. I mean that's like just top of the line acting, top of the line action, and
Hmm.
when you watch that movie, you can see where like Michael Mann is coming from.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's just like that movie is. I mean, Army of Shadows is probably my favorite of his as like a total, but my favorite like action film by Melville is The Red Circle.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. Um, yeah, so now, Jared, I mean, I don't know how much of the French New Wave you've seen, but I kind of want to wrap this up in the next 5 minutes.
Sure.
Uh, so if you want to just,
I can talk about I can very easily talk about my experience with watching French New Wave films in less than 5 minutes because I've literally only seen I've seen Breathless a long time ago. Also, Clear from 5 to 7. That counts, right?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
Varda.
that
Yeah,
definitely counts. Yeah, yeah. What am I saying? Yeah, that probably I don't know, probably some other movies. I mean, like I really enjoy Cleo a lot. Breathless, I thought was fun. It was interesting.
it's kind of poorly paced. Like looking back on it.
I mean, it's not trying to be, conventionally paced, so it's like
Yeah,
hard to really fault the movie for anything like that.
yeah,
Uh,
it
it's
was
like very much,
Godard
it's
paced.
like, yeah, I mean, he's just doing what he wants.
Yeah,
So it's sort of a movie that like you kind of either have to accept or just sort of I don't know brush off or whatever. But like Cleo from 5 to 7, I had more of a like an emotional connection to. I felt like I thought like the main actress like the character is really well performed and the the pacing, despite it sort of trying to be like told in like quote unquote like almost real time, not quite, but
yeah,
like you never feel like it never feels like it lets up. You're always there's all because there's that looming does she have cancer, does she not thing in the question in the background.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And then, I
so
mean,
like
it's a very interesting film. And Varda especially was a big French New Wave. So any Varda that you've
yeah
seen is
yeah
definitely
yeah
French New Wave.
yeah I don't know
Now,
what yeah
now
yeah
Varda was married to Jacques Demy,
mm-hmm.
um,
Yep.
who made. I actually really like his films too. Uh,
Yeah, he did. I've seen one.
was
The
it?
casino,
Oh,
the casino one.
the Bay of Angels.
Yeah, Bay of Angels. I
Yeah,
saw it.
actually,
I saw it when they like at a theater in the city. They screened it, and a friend
yeah, that's with.
who's a Jacques Demy fan.
Yeah, that was with
Uh,
Jean Moreau,
right.
who was a great actress, and she was great in Elevator to the Gallows, the Louis Malle film that had the famous trumpet Miles Davis, trumpet performance.
Hmm.
Starkiller says the American adaptation of Breathless is, in my opinion, equally as good. Isn't that the one with Richard?
American out of
Yeah,
what?
With Richard Gere. I think. I think it's with Richard Gere. Let me look this up. But I remember watching part of it.
What?
Yeah,
Directed by
1983.
who?
Yeah, it is Richard Gere.
Who directed it? Anyone?
Jim McBride. I don't know who Jim McBride is.
I don't know either.
Maybe
Are we talking like a Gus Van Sant Psycho type situation or like a normal remake?
uh, it's literally like I think it is a remake of it. Yes, it is.
But like I mean like it can't be like a shot for shot like
Oh, I don't think it's a shot for shot, but it's like an
that would
American.
be
Yeah,
ridiculous.
when Jesse Lujack steals a car in Las Vegas and drives down to L.A., his criminal ways only escalate. But when will it end?
That's just weird. I don't get why you would want to remake it in like a more conventional way. Assuming that it's done that way. I have no idea, but like I feel like what makes that movie special is like the story is like the last thing that makes it special, I think, right?
Yeah, it's the style of it,
It's
And I
the
think it's
style is
and
like the entire point.
I think it's Belmondo too, because that was like a big like that was like Belmondo's big breakout. He was in right after that. Not like after that film, he was in tons of stuff. Like he was in the Melville film that's also great, Leon Morin Priest. But he was in A Woman Is a Woman. He was in a bunch of Godard films after that. And actually, in Breathless, Belmondo doesn't speak. It's Godard's voice that's actually coming out of Belmondo. Fun
Hmm.
fact. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and yeah, with Breathless, it's the style, But I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, French New Wave. So I might be doing like a French New Wave series here. I think the next movie I'm going to talk about actually is A Scanner Darkly, and then after that maybe hop
Mm,
back onto French New Wave.
I
So
need to watch that.
that's a
I read I one of my classes was like like a class on directing actors when I took last semester, and part of the class we had to like find a scene from an unproduced screenplay and just like and then find like actors and then like direct them. And for a brief period, I was reading through the Charlie Kaufman, because Charlie Kaufman had like written a script like of A Scanner Darkly.
oh,
He was
okay.
gonna, I guess, he had tried to adapt it, uh, and so I've read his screenplay. I've not watched the Linklater movie though.
The Linklater movie's great. Here, Starkiller says it has a style of its own and kind of a precursor to Tarantino. Yeah, I mean Tarantino named his production company Band Apart after Godard's film Band Apart. A Band Apart. Like no, Tarantino's production company is called A Band Apart, but it comes from Godard's film Band Apart, the Band of Outsiders. And then Zombie says Breathless style over substance. Yeah, I think Breathless is definitely more about the style. And like
Yeah, but
this
that doesn't mean
doesn't
it's
mean
not
that it's
really a dig against the movie. Because
that
I
was
mean,
Godard kind of just. I think it's a movie it's a celebration of like cinema. It's a celebration of like 40s like noir kind of 40s B movies, but done in this like hyper stylized French, but also like really low budget way. I mean it was
yeah,
it
like
was
it seemed
yeah.
it seemed like he was. I mean, I haven't done enough research, nearly enough to make any kind of like claim as to his intentions when he was filming, but like it seemed like he was kind of aspects of it were for sure were like just him like messing around or just trying things out or like
Yeah.
being like experimental with how he showed certain
Yeah, and
things,
Starkiller
and just like
says, yeah.
and then like in reverse, or like letting his actors just sort of like take the scene or take hold of like the situation in a way,
Yeah, and
just like
Starkiller
the extended
says
like bedroom stuff.
the style is its substance. Yeah, and I'd agree.
Yeah,
I think that pretty much sums it up pretty
yeah,
well. But yeah, so thank you, Jared. Hopefully, maybe the next time we talk French New Wave, I don't know which New Wave film I'll dive into. I'd say that the New Wave film maybe I'd want to dive into is Elevator to the Gallows. So if everyone wants to
okay,
watch that before, it stars Jean Moreau. It's great. The Miles Davis stuff is the score to it's fantastic, and but yeah, if everyone wants to watch that, that'll probably be a week or 2 weeks from now, maybe less. It depends upon, there's a coronavirus case in my town, and it's not a big town,
ooh,
so
oh shit,
I might be staying in a little bit more, and so maybe more of these live streams will happen. I'll be, this is
yeah, just
as a way to do
stay safe.
something. Yeah, as a way to do
Yeah,
something and interact with people without actually
not
going out.
actually
Because
touching that.
yeah, and I know that there are cases in New York as well. It's
Yeah,
scary.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's scary. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
it's
mean, what is a somewhat of a shame though is how it's sort of some people used it as a way of when you see like reports of like Chinese people facing harassment or like
well.
that kind of thing, like
I
people
think
being
I think that's over now because now we have native spreaders in our own. I saw that when it was first spreading, but I think now that you're
yeah, but I
having
also mean like too in the way that it's being covered, like when there was that case in New York, I think it was like a white guy, but all the news articles, the cover, like it was always
oh, just showing a Chinese person.
the images were always like of like Chinese people,
Yeah,
uh,
I
which
saw.
is not great.
Yeah, I saw a report, and this is very concerning. It was from a Chinese lab in Shanghai. I don't know if it hasn't been peer reviewed yet, but this is what the Chinese scientists think, is that it actually affects. It's similar to SARS, and that it actually will, if you are Asian, it actually affects you worse than if you're another ethnicity. So you have to be really careful, especially if you're Asian, of like,
Oh,
yeah, because
shit.
they have an indicator, some kind of indicator in their lung, that like African Americans and Caucasians don't have as much of, and so it can cause actually their pneumonias to be worse, is what they're thinking. So if
Mm,
you're Asian American, like you have to you have to be really safe, more so than maybe other people, and especially if you're older
mm,
than 60. Um, I mean, now it's like it's hitting. It could be worse. People are just lousy with sanitation and hygiene.
yeah,
Yeah, that's another. That's another
it's
thing. And honestly, like if it gets to your town, they should be closing the schools down. I mean, I'm in a medical clinic right now. That's where I work. And you'd be surprised how many people are like, yeah, my kid has the flu, but I send them to, and they go, I think the kid has a flu. Can I come in for a flu test? And I go, yeah, come in right now. We'll do a flu test. And they go, like right now, I'll have to pick him up from school. And I'm like,
uh,
what? Your
uh,
kid's at school? They're like, well, yeah, he couldn't miss today. And I'm like, no, he could. Like what's a school day? You don't want to get other people infected. It's going to be every pandemic really just comes down to human stupidity causing suffering. That's pretty much what it is. But yeah, so I might be doing more of these live streams as I'm becoming more and more of a
avoiding the
hermit.
coronavirus.
Yeah. But anyways, thanks Jared for coming on, and hey, all you
Thanks for
guys out,
inviting me.
yeah, and all you guys out there, all the viewers, thanks for coming on. And let me put I think this Discord link will still work if you guys want to join the Discord. And I'm on the Discord pretty often, just kind of chatting movies and stuff like that. And yeah, and thanks for coming on, and we'll see you in the next live stream.
All right.
Maybe.
Uh,
I don't think it's.
bye.
Yeah, bye.